Go.
There once was a girl named Rachel who grew up stuffing her head full of stories. Stories of wisdom and faith, of art and science, of animals and culture and history and fantasy, and oh, so many adventures. Her curiosity for the world was insatiable, and even from a young age, her preoccupation with a vibrant imagination was apparent.
Josh was more hyperactive. So Rachel was more getting lost in her own thoughts, and sometimes you'd have to say her name 2 or 3 times before you'd get her attention. So
This is my mom.
My name is Diana Lenz, and I am Rachel Lenz's mother.
Okay. And you love me, right?
And she was born on my birthday, so that made her even more special.
Yes.
If you haven't figured it out by now, I'm Rachel, the little daydreamer. I have a mental disorder you may have heard of, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD for short, and one of the main ways in which it presents itself in me is my dreaminess. I can do something called hyperfocusing, where I spend literal hours on whatever task or thought is engaging me, and then forget to tend to even my most basic needs, like using the bathroom. I find this particularly interesting since ADHD is one of those pop culture diagnoses people seem to associate with cliches.
That's just boys being boys. Kids these days don't get enough discipline. Kids these days watch too much TV. Kids these days play too many video games. Kids these days eat too much sugar. No wonder they're bouncing off the walls.
Yes, hyperactivity is a piece of ADHD, but it's not all there is. There are actually 3 different subtypes. The first, hyperactive impulsive, is marked by being restless, overly talkative, impatient, and being unable to engage in quiet play, among other indications. The second, inattentive, is marked by being forgetful, easily distracted, lost in thought, unable to follow instructions, and making careless mistakes. The third, combined, is a combination of hyperactive impulsive and inattentive. While the combined subtype is most common for both boys and girls, girls are more than twice as likely to be diagnosed with the inattentive subtype than boys. It should be noted that many people exhibit these symptoms occasionally, but people with ADHD are significantly impaired by them in multiple areas of their lives. I have probably lost tens of thousands of dollars worth of items in my 3 decades on this earth. It is not a nice feeling. Earlier, my mom mentioned my brother Josh. He also has ADHD. So does my dad. We were all diagnosed in the early 1990s as the waves of research were surging.
My name is Richard Lenz, and I'm the father of Rachel Lenz.
And here we are.
When were you diagnosed with ADHD?
It was in the early 1990s where my children, my oldest son was diagnosed with ADHD. And I was on a trip from Detroit to Baltimore, and on the return flight, I happened to pick up one of those in-flight magazines, and there was an article on ADHD, and that author was describing me as I read the entire article. And I went home and shared that with my wife, and then I got diagnosed with ADHD.
A diagnosis for me, my brother, my dad. Great. Now that we all know what's going on, we can fix things and move on, right? Right?
How do you think ADHD affected you as a parent?
It affected me in not coping with some of the things that Josh was exhibiting, because I saw myself and my son. There is a lot of correlation. So my parenting with my son was, I think, a negative aspect of parenting rather than a positive one. And I think Josh felt it, the blunt of it.
Why?
Because I could not control my anger. I could not control, even though I knew better, I couldn't really administer disciplinary actions in a very positive way.
Emotional dysregulation is one of the most impairing features of ADHD, no matter the subtype. Because of the way our brains work, we feel our emotions more intensely than our neurotypical peers. When it comes to both gender and sex, due to a combination of cultural socialization and hormonal factors, this tends to be one of the biggest differences between boys and girls. Multiple studies over the last few decades have shown boys tend to externalize their troubles through anger and violence, leading to conduct issues. Girls, on the other hand, tend to internalize their problems through perfectionism and people-pleasing habits. They tend to have issues with low self-esteem and anxiety. But boy or girl or something else altogether, one thing is almost always shared: deeply seated guilt and shame for not being able to control these intense emotions or the response to them.
Was it frustrating to see him going through the same things that you went through?
Yeah, it was very frustrating, and seeing what he was going through is what the same things I went through. And you always want the best for your children, and it was so frustrating. I did not have a real good outlet. One of the things that happened was that my wife and I went to a parent support group for ADHD parents. And that was a really a good thing, because it helped us to deal with some of the issues that we are dealing with. And we read a lot about it.
Yes, they read. And they got us books to read too. And workbooks, and sticker charts, and sent reading materials to our teachers, and filled out questionnaires from our psychologist year after year, and went to some not-so-pleasant parent-teacher conferences. They were advocates in the best way they knew how. And since I was still so young, they thought by focusing on all the good things about ADHD, the creativity, problem-solving skills, empathy, hyperfocus, spontaneity, etc., I might be able to combat any negativity slung my way by the outside world.
I wanted to focus on the positivity with Rachel after I had seen what my son had done. He did not get diagnosed until he was 9 years old, and by that time was not thinking too highly of himself. He was down on himself a lot, and I did not want Rachel to go through that, so I decided, this is my special girl. I loved her a lot because she was born on my birthday, so she was a special birthday gift to me. So I've always wanted her to feel that way. So I never wanted her to feel negatively, and I would read her stories that would focus on positive things, and told her that her teachers, if they thought anything bad about her, that it wasn't true. So I prepared her for that a little bit in life, I think. So.
But it's not just teachers you have to convince that you're trying your hardest, that you're not a screw-up, that you're worthwhile. It's your extended family, your friends, your classmates, your faith leaders, the people in your community, your coworkers, your boss, the people you volunteer with.
Rachel's attention span
people
is
that
short.
you become acquainted
Rachel
with.
herself doesn't demand attention. She does her behavior and lack of concentration following demands. She gets into her own little world. Rachel is unaware of her behaviors most of the time. She is very bright. Rachel's potential is way children accept her easily. I'm not surprised she is doing something unusual. Rachel has conquered her slowness, humming, singing, rocking, twirling hair. Then a student questions, why does Rachel do that?
Most importantly of all, though, the person you have to convince of all these things is yourself. At 33, I still struggle daily with my disorder. My house is chaos in residence form. I have to set multitudinous reminders on my calendars so I don't forget important things, and even that's no guarantee against my slipstream brain. And I suffer from debilitating anxiety attacks when times get really tough. But instead of grazing on imaginary stories and adventures, I now feast on real ones as well. I've embraced my creativity, my spontaneity, and my love of new experiences. The curiosity I kindled in me as a child eventually burst into an insatiable flame for understanding, and no small amount of thanks is due to the love and labor of my parents.